Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, with my co-host, Justin Pennick. Got a long interview with ESPN's Jordan Raanan, over an hour. So we're going to save you all the intro stuff. We'll announce Patreon on the next episode. In fact, Justin's not even here with me right now. He didn't want to do it with me. Before we get into the interview, episode is brought to you by SeatGeek. Live events are back, which means you can get $20 off tickets at SeatGeek with promo code GIANTS. If you don't know what SeatGeek is, they're a ticketing app that makes buying tickets super simple. We've got the app on our phones. It's literally on my phone. I'd used it for Daytona this past week. It was a fun time. Great time. Everyone knew we had fun. Whether it's football, concerts, basketball, baseball, festivals, or more, SeatGeek puts tickets from all over the web in one place to make buying simple. And if you don't know SeatGeek, the best way to know it is talking about the way they rate their tickets from 0 to 10. Make sure you get a good deal. Green means good, red means bad. Simple as that. It's like a stoplight, No one likes to see a red light. We all like to see the green light. And it's all backed by their buyer guarantee, so you can shop for tickets with confidence. And again, we've got the hookup. Use code GIANTS for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code GIANTS. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. And now here's Jordan Raanan of ESPN. All right, we now welcome back on to the program of ESPN, Jordan Raanan. Jordan, what's going on? We're recording this on a Thursday, putting it out on a Tuesday because you have to go to Mexico, I guess. Maybe I don't know if I'm allowed to dox your vacation destiny.
Wow. I mean, Mexico's a pretty wide place. I mean, I don't think, if you could track me down in Mexico, you need to look in the mirror first of all. But yeah, I think we're good.
Go. He's going to be down in Juarez. Vacations, aren't they supposed to happen after the draft for football people?
No, we do. This is like a usual dead lull period between after the Super Bowl. This was like a tradition for the family. We used to go every year the week after the Super Bowl. There's really not that much that happens. As we sit here on this Thursday, it's been pretty quiet this week, right? I mean, like you're talking like real low end like pickups, very few. The cuts, like that kind of stuff is a week or two away, right? As you get closer to the combine. So
how much are you like checking up on socials and, working the phones while you're on vacation? Or do you have does your wife make you just totally unplug?
No, I still sit there. I'm at the pool like this, on the phone. But hey, it's amazing. I have a 2-year-old son and his stock line now is, Daddy, put your phone down. Put your phone down.
He's a smart kid. He's a smart kid.
Yeah, he's right. He's right. I mean, I'm sitting there watching him and on the phone. So I have a buddy, Dave Burkett, covers the Lions. He's the man. He's really good in the Lions beat. Anyway, we used to share stories about how we used to read to our kids, right? And you have the book here. Put my demented finger back away. But you used to read the book here and have your phone behind it. So you're looking at text as stuff is going on as you're reading a book to your kid. Like that happens. You guys will get there someday. You're going to be doing that same thing. You'll be like, man, it sounds ridiculous. Jordan said, I'm going to be doing this. And look at me.
Oh, I'm already getting in trouble for it where it's like, we're supposed to have a nice Sunday dinner at, like a tiki bar. And I'm sitting there checking all right, let me check my post notifications, see if, we signed Ricky Prohl or not. I'm like, listen, I have to do this highlight film of all the preseason catches for Ricky Prohl. But we welcome you back onto the show, and we want to get into some stuff. I mean, this is a new GM, new head coach, new coaching staff. There's a lot to talk about and find out about the team, and that's what people want to hear from you. But before that, you took 4th in the Toney Award, or the not sure. If
I was going to bring it up. I need to know, what do I need? What do I need to do to get myself at the level of being a real serious Toney Award contender?
Well, it's going to be tough next year. Now, it's the not sure if you're a good person, but Best Giants Reporter presented by Kadarius Tony Award presented by Talking Giants. So Duggan isn't he just like your guys' good guy. It really was based off of your guys' good guy award. I think the good guy award is just one of the funniest things in the world, where it's just because you guys talk to us, he's a good guy. I don't know. I just me. I'm into the beat as much as the Giants.
You find things funny that most people don't find funny.
Yes, basically that. So Duggan's not, I kind of had a feeling Duggan would win. I really think it's between you, Zach, and Art. Art's always going to be the fan favorite, so he's always going to get votes, even if they're not first place votes. So I think it's between you and Zach getting like as many first place votes, and really it's about sucking up to us, like being friendly with us, sucking up to us.
A Talking Giants versus the World tweet. If there's a picture of you wearing a Media Some Clown shirt, I mean, those are really big home run swings that you can do to possibly get to the top.
It has to do with timing. Like, you can't piss off the fan base, like a week before voting. Like, you could piss them off tomorrow, but make sure they forget about it by then.
Yeah, so you got to, when the time comes, that's when I have to do my biggest butt kissing.
Yes. Basically, just the entire Breaking Big Blue podcast is just like, I was listening to Bobby Skinner and he said this, and just really, really kissing on. We create, kind of like the media did for players. We created an award for kissing our ass. So that's
it seems very self-serving, but I like I like the way you guys are thinking here. That's right up my alley. Now, Bobby, can you at least? I mean, I need you to work for me here. I mean, how often do you reach out to me for that inside information that just can't, because I can't report everything I have. Like, I could have something 85%, 90%, but I can't really report that until it's 100%. So I do give you, you reach out to me and say, what's the deal on this? What's the deal on that? I mean, you need to tell the people that who has the A1 information.
This is true.
That is true, and that's why GT Bobby Thompson's making a real run at the award next year.
That's my boy. GT Bobby Thompson. Well, you go get him, Wes. All right.
Well, at the same time,
him, Wes.
Yeah. Well, I wish I was Wes.
You can sit here and deny it all you want. No one's going to believe you.
His Kelvin Benjamin one was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Everyone assumes that you are Wes. That's it.
I know, and I hate it because it's not me. And what happens is, like, during FanFest, I yelled at Freddie Kitchens and was like, "What?" Because he didn't wear sleeves, and I was like, "What's up with wearing the sleeves tonight?" And he said, I didn't get the exact quote, but it was something of like, "These guns aren't legal in New Jersey," and everyone was like, "Oh, you just made that up." Okay, Wes Steinberg. I was like, "No, that actually happened." Even like one of the mayor's grandsons like messaged me and was like, "That was funny." I was next to him.
Dustin, do you believe that he is not Wes?
I 100% believe he's not Wes. There was doubt at first, but it's gone on for too long. I don't think Bobby would have. Bobby's the kind of guy where if it's a shtick for a little bit, then when it's not a shtick anymore, he stops. But it's still going. So that's why I think that it's not Wes. If this stopped like in the month of November, they'd be like, maybe. But it's still going.
He would have went to take the credit for the whole Kelvin Benjamin thing too, probably. Like once that really blew up and everybody thought that Kelvin Benjamin was cut because he was stealing food from the cafeteria. Like Bobby would have been like, "That's me."
That was hilarious, and it's like it's just so easy to get. I won't throw anybody under the bus.
What did you think of Bobby's Saquon Barkley Chicago burn down the stadium and piss on it video?
People are going to be really mad. We're not talking about the Giants. I promise we're going to get there.
It's very funny because it just shows how gullible people are. I mean, if you're going to believe that, like, that he actually said that, and the number of people that actually did believe it. It just shows our society is lost. Like
we're doomed. That was my main. That was
why GT Bobby Thompson gets credit. It's because people are like, no, he got Dable right, which is like, well, of course, everyone knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. Also, the way you could see some of these people work, and I know I have a handful of people. I know this is how they work. They take the crumbs that are out there from legitimate reporters, and then just reiterate them. Like you might not be seeing it because you're not following every single reporter. Like Aaron Wilson put out that Patrick Graham was going to be back at like 6 a.m. in the morning, right? That he was likely to be back, which turned out to not be true. And then somehow, there's other people out there not mentioning any names, GT Bobby Thompson, who like a couple hours later then had that same exact thing. So you could take the crumbs and push it forward. And most of the time you're going to be right because you're taking it from legitimate sources out there.
Wow.
And it's the thing is, no one's gonna just get there, like, get into the game by breaking the head coach and GM news for the Giants. Like, you get the little, like, you start with Isaiah Wilson and you work up from there. Like, you're not getting the head coaching news before, Rap Sheet, your boy Schefter.
Yeah, well, this is like you're dealing with ownership level. Like, those are the only people that are making those decisions. So you're not just jumping, like you said, from minor transaction to ownership level stuff. That's just on a consistent basis. That's just not realistic.
We're friends with John Halapio, and he was on the 49ers, and he told me, he's like, he had to tell the players in the 49ers locker room, like, no, that's a guy who does like Giant stuff. That wasn't an actual question to Saquon Barkley about, you know, pissing and burning down this. Well, it was, and that was another thing that was breeded by the beat, because he got asked like 3 times, basically like if he was going to hold a ceremony on the Chicago field. So I was like, all right, let me take this a step further. And then within about 10 minutes, I was like, okay, there's going to be a lot of people who fall for this.
You would think that, you know, the part where you say burn down the stadium and pee on the field
maybe
was where people would be like, okay, that's funny, that's a joke. This isn't real. But no, it doesn't stop people. They just plowed right through that part, you know, like it didn't exist.
I forget what place wrote an article, but I still have the screenshot of the headline. It's like Giants reporter asked Saquon Barkley if he wants to burn down Soldier Field, and that
it was I need to frame the big lead.
Yeah, that's
sure
what
it was the big lead. Yeah,
and then Barstool got a hold of it, like, which they should know better than anyone. Like, of course this isn't real.
Yeah, well, they got their interns working their accounts. So, all right. Jordan,
let's get into some Giants news, though.
We unfortunately have to talk about the Giants. However, I mean, I've been more happy to talk about the Giants recently. Now it's going to suck when there's going to be some cuts made, but let's talk to what is, I think, making at least myself pretty excited about the Giants. So what substantial things do you feel are changing or coming in the building now with Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll, now that they're taking the lead and taking charge? Now, this could be just overall personnel in the building. That could be personnel changes, vibe of the building, technology upgrades. With those two guys taking over, especially Joe Schoen in the building, what changes or do you feel could be coming?
Well, there's 2 things that really stick out to me. Okay, number 1 is Joe Schoen. You talk to him and you get the vibe that he's a smart guy and that, you know, he knows what he's doing. He's competent. He comes from a place where they did a really good job, and you hear a lot of good things about him. So the bar is so incredibly low, right? That you look at it and you're like, instantly, who knows what he is, right? Who knows ultimately if he's going to be really good or if he's even semi-competent. Just think about how big an upgrade that is, right? Because we're talking about a GM he's replacing who, quite frankly, the results say was one of the worst in recent history. Like, he's in Matt Millen range. Mm-hmm. Let's look at his track record of moves that when he took over. So the fact that you're adding Joe Schoen, who's a smart guy, and I heard almost all positives about Joe Schoen, how he's smart, well-rounded. You know, he did pro, he did college, he's a grinder. You know, he's had a career where he's held a lot of different jobs. He knows football too, like on the coaching side. Like, that's originally how he got in, right? He was a player. So these are all things that I like. The number 2 is when you look at the words and you look and you see, you know, they're talking about being progressive, innovative, using analytics, because let's be honest. I mean, we heard Dave Gettleman and the Giants say, look, we're increasing our analytics department. And then he went and he said, he called the analytics guy the IT guy. I mean, so can we really take that seriously? Like, trust me, and I know Joe Judge isn't the most advanced in that either, right? He's not super progressive in that way. He is in a lot of ways, but but not that way specifically. But like, I know the analytics department, again, they had the information and it was being looked at by coaches and management, and it was just, basically thrown out the window. Yeah. The idea that you were down 14 points and you should go for a 2-point conversion was looked at as stupid. Like, how could you do that? Like, that's just ridiculous. No way. We're not going to do that. You could present as much analytical data as possible that, okay, you actually want to try and win. You go for 2 when you're down 14 the first time. And if you don't make it, you get a chance the second time. Right. And so that kind of stuff was looked at. So you see those words. And if you go look at the words when they hired Brian Daboll, I think it was either innovative or progressive. One of those 2 specific words and then a phrase that was
data innovation.
Yeah, like that stuff makes me think that they're going to be way more advanced technologically, they're going to be way more advanced analytically than this organization ever has. And like, we've been talking about this forever, about bringing this organization into basically the 21st century. And the Giants have been super slow. And look, you can't use it all the time. You don't want to use it all the time. Mm-hmm. But you'd be stupid not to at least accept or analyze the data that's out there. Innovative ways. And we're talking about, and I heard this about Joe Schoen, he's willing to look at ways analytically to evaluate players. That doesn't mean he's going to use it in full. Doesn't mean that whatever these numbers say, whatever, we come up with, whatever algorithm we come up with to analyze what numbers are good for are mandatory for wide receivers taken in the 3rd to 5th round, whatever it is. But at least he's willing to use it as part of the puzzle. Yeah. I think that to me is what really stands out.
Yeah. One of the things that Shane said, and I think he said this when he was on WFAN with Tiki and Tierney, he laughed at it, where it was like the board's it. So what I'm looking at with Joe Schoen and what I'm interested to see as we get some behind the scenes videos or whether it's quotes about how is the data innovation process, whether it's technology that is in the building or just how they go about their everyday business. And now we're talking about evaluating players with free agency in the draft. How is that going to be a part of it? And I think it won't be the sole thing, but like you said, I think it will be part of it. And that excites me that they're going to use it as a tool and not just something that's so ambiguous and scary that they should stay away from.
Yeah, I know they used it in Buffalo. So the fact that they used it regularly in Buffalo and it helped them. And go look at their drafts were pretty good. I mean, they got some guys in the middle rounds that end up being really good, useful players. The Devin Singletaries, Dawson Knox, Gabe Davis. I mean, substantial players. And God, the Giants need that. They just haven't been able to do that forever now, the middle rounds.
Now, Jordan, we were talking about, sources and playing the source game and how some people do it. I heard rumblings that the Giants were talking with Joe Schoen, not interviewing, not anything illegal, blah, 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 but they were at least interested in Joe Schoen while the season was still going on. Whether they talked to him, whether they were just interested, I don't know, hands off. So I'm not asking you to confirm that. I'm just asking you, was Joe Schoen always the Giants GM? Was he always their guy, Mara's guy, Tish's guy, Giants front office's guy?
I wouldn't say that. I think that's like taking it like a step or two, a couple steps too far.
Was he always the favorite?
He was a guy that they were interested in, that they knew about, that they heard about. And, these back channel things, everybody knew that Gettleman was gone. It probably and I think I had these these are the texts that me and Bobby had back and forth, probably back in November. What were the 2 names that I told you that were going to be involved? Do you remember, Bobby?
We talked Shane. I know that. And I can't remember the other name. I don't pay attention too much.
The other name was Ryan Poles. Okay. So probably by early December, I had told you those 2 guys are going to be involved in the mix. Now, if I know that they're going to be involved in the mix, there obviously were some conversations that happened and it might not necessarily be because they have to do it a little gingerly because Dave Gettleman was still there. Joe Schoen is still there, but they all have agents. You can have a general conversation with agents. Hey, we're probably going to be looking for a general manager. Joe Schoen is the guy that interests us. I can see us possibly talking to Joe when the time comes about an opening. Like these kind of things happen all the time in every aspect. This isn't just the NFL. I mean, that's how these things work in the media business, right? I mean, there's a lot of these conversations. They don't generally have to be John Mara to Joe Schoen. Like that technically would be illegal. But there's other ways to let Joe Schoen know that that you're interested in him. You could talk to people around him. Hey, we're trying to find out about this guy to see if we're interested in him. And then of course that gets back to him if you're calling his close friends, right? So yeah, those 2 guys in particular, I say were near the top of the list from the beginning. At least those were the ones I knew about. I'm sure Adam Peters was well respected too. I just didn't know that. I didn't hear about it until, way later on. But so Joe Schoen was near the top of the list. Like he was, when they started to put together the list, like those were 2 of the names that were near the top of the list. And then as they go along. I mean, the difference was, and the reason he got the job, Joe Schoen, was because he was a little more well-rounded than the other people.
Yeah,
right.
He could. There's more to running a franchise and being a GM than just talent evaluation.
Right. So he had worked in multiple departments, and then so the Giants liked that. He had that. Adam Peters also had that. Ryan Poles was a younger guy. He's been mostly on the evaluation side. The Giants loved him to the point where they would have. They had an idea. Okay, if we hire another guy, we'd love to hire Ryan Poles as our assistant general manager if he didn't get another job, which he eventually did. Because remember, he wasn't the assistant GM in Kansas City,
right?
So that technically would have been, a promotion for him. So, but they loved him. But the idea that Joe Schoen had been part of a rebuild that's similar to what the Giants are in now, and B, was involved in multiple aspects, business side, marketing. Remember, he started in the ticket office. Like, that's his story. That was the differentiator and why he ultimately was the choice.
Bobby, I'm sorry I'm cutting you off, but Jordan, you said something about Ryan Poles coming over here and being assistant GM. Where did John Mara's brain go from December to now? When did they make the hire? Mid-January for Joe Schoen? Where did his brain go from, or how did, from what you know, okay, the fans had to be the one to convince John Mara not to promote Kevin Abrams to GM. That was a thing that was out there. To now, like, we have this competency and we have this like, whoa, it seems like we're doing things right. And if Ryan Poles didn't get a GM job, we were going to be interested in bringing him into assistant GM, or even just bringing in Brandon Smith to begin with. So how did his brain go from point A to point B?
I mean, look, I'm just, I don't know exactly what he was thinking. Like, he's not.
That baffles me to hear that, though.
John Mara's not giving me the play-by-play on this stuff.
Yeah, you're no Russ Salzberg. Sorry, I'm trying to get you in trouble.
That's a legendary. I mean, there's I listened to that podcast, by the way. Let me just say that. And it took a lot. It takes a lot for me to listen and read other people at this point in my life. That was an all-timer. Yeah,
Zach told me, he's like, you have to listen to this.
If you haven't heard that podcast by Russ Salzberg, it's a classic. It's definitely one that should be listened to for entertainment purposes. But all right, back to John Mara here.
But that was a thing, though, right? Am I getting that wrong about how John Mara
I don't
wanted
think,
Kevin Abrams?
I told Bobby, I think Bobby, because people were asking me all the time, NYG Daily, like, I remember him, like, is this Abrams thing's real? Mm-hmm. And I kept telling people, look, they're not, that's not going to happen. And I talked to people in the organization about this, not directly John Mara, but like, they all were under the realization that the results weren't good enough for them to possibly do that. That the fact that he was part of a regime that made so many mistakes, like, I don't think that seriously was ever in consideration from like you said, December to mid-January. Like, I really don't. Mm-hmm. Like, they understood the situation. Kevin Abrams understood the situation. Like, they didn't do well enough. Like, yes, would they? Is it my opinion that John Mara, in a perfect world, they would have had a good year and they would have been able to do that transition if they kept trending in the direction they thought they were heading going into the season after Joe Judge's first year. Yeah, they could have pushed Kevin Abrams in there. Dave Gettleman goes into the sunset, and there you go. But I really don't think that that's something that, when things went as poorly as they did this season, and basically every move just did not work out this year, right? I mean, so many moves just did not work out, that they seriously thought, okay, this is something we can do.
Yep.
But they did, so they made change, like Kevin Abrams, which is surprising to see anyone take a demotion, but Kevin Abrams took a demotion. Mark Kahn's gone. I think there might have been a couple other moves, guys they let go. I can't remember off the top of my head.
There's a few people that were sort of like directly connected to Gettleman, yeah. Yeah,
so we know this takes time with the new GM comes in, because the draft and free agency is right around the corner. So you can't just overhaul the whole front office right away. You can, they can, bring in Brandon Brown and do other type of moves. Chris Pettit is like the name out there that's still on Giants fans' radar. Like, yes, Chris Mara, obviously, but we all are, as much as we all say it, we all know he's here for life.
Yeah.
Chris
and I
Pettit.
don't look people. The idea that they should fire Chris Mara and Tim McDonald, that's silly. I mean, this is how the world works, people. Like you have a big business and it's you own the business. You have family members on the payroll. That's how like almost every big business operates. That's not publicly traded, a public organization, and that's just how this world is. If you had this mega corporation, Bobby, wouldn't you put your family and close people on the payroll?
No, I'm all about success. No family ties.
Wow.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you could put them in a role that's basically BS. I mean,
But here's the issue: is that Chris Mara's not in that role.
Them. Huh?
He's not in a BS role though. And you and Duggan and even Pat Leonard did a good job in that end of season John Mayer presser, really pressing him on. Like, no, you're not gonna just sidestep this question. Like, Chris Mara being in any room has more weight than other guys because it's the whole boss's son dynamic.
I think what we found out here over these last few years is we should be giving Jerry Reese credit, and Ernie Accorsi too. Their job and the GM's job with the way the Giants organization is set up is that they have to minimize that, right? That's not going to go away.
It's crazy how that's part of the job.
Their job
now.
is to deal with that.
Yeah.
And keep it in check and make sure that you make them feel like they're being heard. And you're taking into account, I mean, this works the way of life in a lot of ways. But at the same time that you're ultimately making the final decisions and you're not being overly influenced by it. I mean, that's just how it's going to be.
That's why I think it's so important to have the GM head coach on the same cycle, because now you have that 1-2 punch against, those other voices in the room where Gettleman and Judge didn't get along on everything, and they weren't on the same cycle, and they probably had different. I mean, Joe Judge showed up, and Dave Gettleman was immediately on the hot seat. Like, that's not a recipe for success, and that's why Judge being with a new GM wouldn't have been a recipe for success. But it's like having that 1-2 punch of two guys with a vision, I feel like, is so valuable right now, and why we're a little happier.
When things start going wrong and people are on separate pages, people start picking sides. That's naturally, how it works. You're going to be in self-protection mode. Everybody does it. You latch on to who you agree with and who you think is basically the stronger voice there. I mean, that's just, and so it creates a division. And look, that division existed for sure.
Yeah. So
the basis of my question, I got to finish this, Justin. It was Chris Pettit. 2 weeks after the draft, do you think that he is still here, or has he cozied enough up to Tim McDonald?
I think they're in evaluation mode. I still think the jury's out on that. The evaluations for this draft are going to play a large part in that, right? If Joe Schoen is sitting there saying, wow, these Chris Pettit evaluations are really good, he's going to want to keep them, right? So I think there's a lot that's still to be determined as we sit here, mid-February-ish? You're going to see after the draft, I think a real overhaul of the scouting staff in general. And you're going to see Joe Schoen bring in people that, he trusts and people that he looks at and respects as evaluators and scouts. And that's coming. But I spoke to a source and he said the plan originally was he's going to bring in one guy sort of to be his right-hand man. He's going to bring in him to Brandon Beane.
Yeah.
Right. He's going to bring in his Joe Schoen to Brandon Beane. So that's I'm drawing a blank on the guy from Philadelphia. Brandon Brown.
Oh, I kept on saying Brandon Smith. That's not it.
Brandon Smith's the linebacker from Penn State.
Wow. Look at that.
So he's going to bring in his Joe Schoen, and that's Brandon Brown. A young, smart guy. You hear a lot of good things about him. Has been mostly on the pro personnel side. But this is, he got, I think, on his last year was his first year, believe, really doing more draft stuff. So this is an opportunity for him to sort of expand his horizons and basically position himself to eventually be a general manager as well.
All right, before we get back to the interview with Jordan Raanan of ESPN, we got to talk about DraftKings. Hoops fans, the latest offer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is too good to pass up. I'm talking between the legs, 360 windmill Good. Heard the dunk contest didn't have any of that. New customers can bet just $1 on any team and get $150 in free bets if they win. It's that simple. DraftKings Sportsbook customers can also bet on the NBA with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. There's more skin in the game. I love that phrase. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code JOHNBOY. Bet just $1 on any NBA team and get $150 in free bets if they win. That's promo code JOHNBOY at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 years or older and physically present in New York. Eligibility restrictions apply. Minimum $5 deposit. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full details. Gambling problem? Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Let's go back to talking with Jordan Raanan. I can imagine football's football, but I also can imagine some of the people that have been in the building for the Giants for a long time, or even people that were just hired under, scouts that were hired under Judge or hired just under Gettleman. I can imagine it's very difficult in terms of like almost speaking the same language of how they want to go about like an evaluation process. So I can really only imagine how difficult that may be right now and how important this evaluation process is for Joe Schoen and then also the guys that are already in the building right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, we're still fresh and new, so I think we're going to find out over the next few months. I mean, I think they're still learning, right? Those guys you're talking about, they're still finding out, okay, what is he going to want from us? Yeah. What is going to be different here? How are we going to evaluate? And I think as we get through the combine, and the next few weeks after that, we're going to find out more about where this organization really is going under Joe Schoen. That's why when you mentioned, I was really kind of vague. And when you're talking about the technological maybe advances that they're going to make, right? Because, I mean, he's been there. Has it been a month? Probably less.
He's been here for a hot second. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how much can you actually change in 3 or 4 weeks? Like you still have to get ready for free agency and the draft. He doesn't have time to make all these massive overhauls yet. That's why once April comes around after that draft, that's when we're going to see, okay, he has this plan. Here's how he's going to do it. And now he has time to, April, May, June, July, August, even to really start, get the wheels turning.
Yeah. And I think the difference between this regime and the previous regime is I think because of the process, they deserve the patience. Like Joe Schoen deserves that patience versus, Dave Gettleman, sure, he could have been given that patience, but when you double down on Eli and then you draft Saquon, you sign Nate Solder, all that money, you don't deserve that patience. So I think that's the kind of difference.
He stayed for 4 years.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about from the fan base.
4 years, for God's sake. Think about that for a second. That's how dysfunctional the organization is. The fans didn't give it to him. The organization still gave Dave Gettleman 4 years. The coaches can't get 4 years, but the GM, who is historically bad, got 4 years. Amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, the thing that bothered me the most about Gettleman was like throwing Shermer under the bus 3 weeks before the season's over, when in reality Shermer was a lot better than what Gettleman was. But we got a new coaching staff. I want to talk about some players as well because they have some decisions to make. But I do want to talk about the OC because Wink Martindale, once Patrick Graham leaves, and I actually want to hit on some old Judge Graham stuff to clean up at the end. But Wink is like a slam dunk candidate, right? Mm-hmm. But Mike Kafka, they had Pep Hamilton, who seemed like a lot of people's favorite, from the outside looking in, Chad O'Shea. What kind of made Mike Kafka the guy for Brian Dable? Because I know football is all football, but it's like, he runs West Coast, Dable runs Earhart Perkins. Like, what made Kafka the guy for them?
I think, and from what I've heard, he just impressed him from a football perspective. Like, it's not specifically like we run this and you run that. It's his approach to how he looks at football and how he looks at offensive football. And I know you say West Coast and, the Earhart Perkins, that's what Dable runs. Remember, Brian Dable went, and I think this is the new age version. Andy Reid's been like that. Andy Reid was a West Coast guy, but he's also evolved and sprinkled so much more stuff in. So I think that appealed to Daboll as well. The fact is that, think about it. Daboll he does come from the Patriots tree, right? Technically, but he's also worked for a lot of different offenses. I spoke to Davis Webb about this, and that's what he told me. The beauty of Brian Daboll's offense is you're going to see elements of Alabama, of what he did when he worked with Tua and Jalen Hurts. You're going to see some of New England, of what they did with Brady, the real spread him out, quick passing game. You're also going to see a lot of that RPO and zone read stuff that they did with Josh Allen in Alabama, and he takes it and puts it together. I have a story coming. I don't know when it's going to run. It might run before this. I'm not really sure, but around whenever this publishes. But the idea is Brian Daboll, he gets hired, right, on a Friday night. He speaks to Daniel Jones that night, and he says, hey, and this is what he does. This is not just specifically for Daniel Jones. Hey, tell me what plays you like best. Tell me what you like to run, whether it's even high school, Duke. I want to know what you like to run. And this is what he's known to do. And so in Buffalo, Cole Beasley had a couple plays from SMU that he really liked to run. They ended up being some of their most popular plays and successful plays. Cole Beasley play from SMU was like one of the Buffalo Bills' top plays. And so that's how Brian Daboll is going to build this playbook in part. Like, he has his staples, right? Of course, everybody does, but he's going to take plays that Daniel Jones plays that Saquon Barkley, if he's there, that he likes to run, maybe that worked for him in Penn State, and put them in the playbook. Davis Webb told me he takes 80 to 90% of their plays that they suggest and actually puts them in the playbook. Doesn't mean he's always going to run a lot of them, but the fact that he's taking 80 or 90% of these plays that are suggested by his players, even the defensive guys. Davis Webb mentioned named Jordan Poyer, who's a safety in Buffalo. Like, the defensive guys are giving them suggestions, and he'll take them and put them in the playbook. I think the term he used was, he's not a guy who knows it all. He's a guy who's looking to find out it all, or something along those lines. He said it more eloquently than I did. I screwed it up in some way, shape, or form there. But I think so that's when you look at it and say, okay, that's where Mike Kafka kind of fits in here too. Because you're talking about a guy, they're not specifically saying, this is the offense you run, we want to institute that here. No, they want a guy who's open-minded and is willing to, think from an open mind in regards to offense and football. And that's how they're going to build their offense here. So I don't think you can really pigeonhole too much of systems and this is what they're going to look like. They're really, and I think Mike Kafka had the same thought process, going to tailor it to what these players that they have do. And that's how this offense is going to be.
Do you think Kafka gets the play calling duties this year?
I don't know yet. My gut tells me Mike Kafka would only really be taking this job if he thought he probably was going to be the play caller. Because think about it for a second.
I mean, they even said they want the OC to call plays anyway.
They said they want he's at least in the serious consideration to call plays. Like, it's not like a done deal that Daboll's going to call plays. I really don't think so. Mike, think about it. Eric Bieniemy is up in the air about whether he returns to Kansas City. That would have kind of bumped up Mike Kafka, right? Likely. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what you've been hearing for a while. Like, Andy Reid wanted Mike Kafka, if Eric Bieniemy left, to be his offensive coordinator. So, to me, in order to be able to want him to make this move, I think that probably was a part of it. The fact that they would look at him as a potential play caller. So I do think at some point in this season, you're going to see Mike Kafka calling plays. And also in Kansas City, it shows you who's really calling plays in Kansas City.
Yeah. Andy Reid.
It's Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Unless Andy Reid wants to spread propaganda that day. Justin, do you want to get into some of individual players of because there's a lot of big decisions looming for this. I mean, he said he wants to clear $40 million cap, right?
Yeah. And I honestly, it seems to be the best way to clear at least $7 million of cap space, Jordan, is trading Saquon Barkley. Now, I have gone on record saying, put a gun to my head, I do not think Saquon Barkley is on the team next year. And I do think it's not something that I just hope, as I like him as a person, but, as a fan, I just hope that the Giants just kind of move on. What are you thinking the future of Saquon Barkley holes.
I'm saying you just have to look at it from a realistic perspective, team-wise and personal-wise for him. He's in the last year of his deal, right? He's a 50-year option, $7 million, let's say. The Giants need to clear cap space. You can't bank on wanting to re-sign this guy anyway right now. He's been injured for 3 straight years.
Seems like the most obvious move for the clear cap space is moving on from Saquon.
You clear cap space, you add capital. It would be good for the Giants. It would probably be good for the player too. Like, he's probably a change of scenery probably would not be bad for Saquon Barkley. Now, I still think he's a pretty good player. Like, if he's healthy, I still think he's a good player. I don't really realistically think Devontae Booker is as good or better than him. No, Devontae Booker was as good or better than a Saquon Barkley that was banged up for most of the year.
Yeah,
who was coming back from major injury. Yeah, if that's what Saquon is, then yes, they're comparable. I think he has an offseason now to get healthy. I think he could be still a good player in this league. But what's his future? What's his future with the Giants? At best, it's up in the air after the season. He has to stay healthy and prove he can stay healthy to even warrant talking to about a long-term contract. So the likelihood is he has 1 year left on his deal. If you can get something for him and shed cap for a team that, quite frankly, I mean, they're in the midst of like a rebuild.
Yep.
Like, they almost have to rebuild here. They have to shed $40 million off a 4-13 team.
Yeah, well, they're kind of in a, like, Saquon Barkley next year on the Giants is kind of a no-win situation for the Giants, where if he plays really well, like, he stays injury-free, it's like, well, he's been injured his entire career besides the rookie season. And even had that training camp injury, that rookie season. So it's like, there's really no more, like, when you say if he's healthy, it's like, well, he's never healthy, So, but if say he stays healthy and he has an awesome season, well, now you're stuck paying a face of the franchise running back, and that's
years 6 to 8. How many running backs you want to pay years 6 to 8 in their career?
Exactly, and this is one that's had
it's
serious
an awkward spot right now.
Injury history. One who has always had an issue of getting those tough nose yards, and then this past year it's like, okay, he didn't get those tough yards besides a couple of games, but he also didn't have any big plays besides one catch versus. I mean, he didn't have a single 50-yard run this year. That's insane to look. Look at injured Saquon Barkley from 2019. Look at his highlight tape. It's better than any running back in the league, and he was battling with a sprained ankle half that season. So he either plays well and you have to pay him, or he plays horrible and you just let him walk for nothing and you didn't get whatever you get back from him.
I talked about this on my podcast with Dave Rothenberg. 3rd round pick this year. Do you take it from him?
Easy. Yeah. I feel like that's best case scenario almost. I
feel like for a 3rd round pick.
No, best case to me is, how about this? And I brought this up, which is basically the equivalent of a 3rd next year, a 2nd rounder next year.
Yeah, I would do that. Yeah. But at this end, also you have to look at it from other teams' point of views. Is like they're not as entrenched as the day to day. Like, okay, I always bring up John Ross when the Giants signed John Ross. You look at the speed. You look at him getting like a lot of touchdowns for playing a little bit. But you don't look at the drops the same way when you're watching, all 22. And it's like, so us, it's like, hey, if he can drop it, where Evan Ingram, where it's like Giants fans hate Evan Ingram, but another team sees Evan Ingram like, I can work with that guy. So you look at it from another team's point of view.
Definitely.
That's a step away. You look at Saquon Barkley. You say all the reasons right there. Like, if he could get healthy, there's definitely teams that will convince themselves that Saquon Barkley.
Oh yeah, we can work with him. Hey, let us work with him. Let's see if we can hit. Because there's the potential to hit big on it. So that potential is enticing. It's like the carrot hanging right there.
And when he's right, he's a running back who adds wins. Like, I know they haven't had a bunch of wins as the Giants, but he did add wins in his tenure, his first 2 years with the Giants. Wasn't enough, but he is a running back who can do some special things when he's right. He just hasn't been right, and now we're heading into a contract year. If we're heading into year 3, this would be a totally different conversation. But I just think the Giants are in a no-win situation with Saquon, whether he plays well or plays bad.
Yeah.
If I'm like a pretty good team and I have some money, you're close, like you're a competitor. Like I would add him. I mean, I think it's a good ad for a team that's willing to take that shot, that he can at least get back to even 80% of what he was at that time is really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's a team that's even willing to give up a 2nd or a 3rd round pick, I may even be willing to, the Giants may have to eat some of that cap anyway. I don't know if there's going to be a team that's just going to clean wipe. All right, we'll give you a good high leverage draft pick. Plus, we'll take all the cap too. For 1 year, maybe a competitor will, but I think that's going to be tough. But there will be a team that will look at what Saquon Barkley can do versus, a psychopath like myself that charted in the month of December that 25% of his carries went for 0 or negative yards. Teams will not be doing that.
No, they'll be dreaming of the upside. There's always somebody
absolutely.
out there that.
So do you think he's here next year or not?
Who's this?
Saquon. So I'm not going to I'm willing to put a gun to my head, which is strong. I'm going to
say if I had a bet on it, I'm going to bet on him not being here.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay. I think he will be. But I'm hoping.
I don't think he would object to it either, by the way.
Yeah.
You think guys like playing on losing teams that have been consistently losing? He's looking around the league. His buddy Odell, because they're still close, just finally found a spot that was good, like a good organization and a good team, and he's sitting there celebrating a championship. Granted, he tore his knee.
Tough.
Poor went out for him, but guys see this. I mean, and trust me, it's frustrating to lose every week. It's frustrating to be injured and having people all over you. I mean, think about it. You could tell Saquon the frustration is hidden. He said it multiple times already. If basically to the people that have doubted him, like if when he turns it around, you better stay on the other side of the table. He's hearing it.
Oh yeah, he hears it. And part of me does feel bad for him because a lot of has been injury. It's injury and the fact that he was drafted second overall is why he gets all of this.
To be fair, he hasn't been around a very good team around him. His offensive line has yet to be, he's not playing.
His rookie year was special too. Like
he's not
it was
playing
a special
in a great
rookie
situation. He never had he's not. It's like if you put him in San Francisco, he'll be great. I mean, he didn't have that situation around him now.
Yeah, he's had dog shit offensive lines. I mean, his rookie year was special. Even his second year was pretty damn good when you consider injuries and again another bad team around him. So those explosive plays have always been there, and this year they just weren't, and he just didn't look like the same player. So,
but again, I'm just guessing, on whether he's going to be there or not because we really don't know anything about Joe Schoen yet. But I'm just looking at the situation money wise. He's talked about the cutting of the money, the Saquon's contract. So to me, it almost like Bobby said, it almost makes sense. Like if you just took all names out of it and all draft, draft position out of it, like it would just make sense. And we're not in position to have a $7 million running back who's on the last year of his deal here.
It doesn't, and you can see what with a bad offensive line, Devontae Booker wasn't good, but he averaged 4.2 yards per carry, which isn't horrible. So it's like you can see someone else run. You saw Wayne Gallman have success, and I was never a big Wayne Gallman fan, but he had success. Hell, even Alfred Morris had good games. When they had Gates, Lemieux, and Thomas all working, and Zeitler working together well. So it's again, we're also talking about the running back spot. We're not talking about a QB. I'm going to save you some Daniel Jones conversation because I think it's pretty – everyone has the same point of view right now on DJ. Decline the option, give him a year because the QB class doesn't make – I don't want to belabor that.
Yeah, they're just in a position – the position just speaks for itself, like the spot that they're in with it. Like if they had a lot of money, it would make, the Russell Wilson talk would be, if they were in a better position just in general, roster-wise – financially, the Russell Wilson talk would make more sense, but it just doesn't.
Yeah,
and
I've kind of changed my. Unless you're like your team that's like the QB away, it's like everything in place but the QB. I kind of changed my stance on the QB trades. Like, you know what? Be good at drafting and find the QB you believe in and get him. Mike Kafka and the Chiefs did that. Buffalo Bills and Brian Dable and Joe Schoen did. Believe at some point you got to believe in that you can evaluate a QB and get a QB. Don't be the Colts.
Yeah, well, you got to build it. That's the thing. They have to build up enough around that position right now because they're just not even close, right? We're talking about having to shed $40 million. So think about their roster already with as many holes as they have, adding more holes. Like that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah, if they added Wilson, they'd just be a worse version of the Seahawks.
Yeah.
If a young guy like Deshaun Watson wasn't have legal troubles, that one makes more sense. But there's no, there's
First
no
of all,
young.
the Seahawks are in a better situation than the Giants. They have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Bobby Wagner. I mean, Giants don't have those guys.
No.
Take for them none of those guys.
Disrespectful to Kadarius Tony, but whatever. What do you think about Kadarius? Like, just overall, like, from the media covering him? Because his press conferences were electric. When he plays, he's electric, but he's had these injury issues, and the off the field stuff I think is overblown, but I also don't think you can ignore it and pretend like, hey, this isn't a guy that you worry about getting through an off season. Like, you've been covering the Giants for a long time, and he seems like a different player than you guys have ever covered.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty electric. I mean, he could do a lot of things, but he just didn't play this year. He was always injured. So then that brings back into those things that you talked about off the field, and you wonder, how much is he focusing on football? How much does it mean to him? And that's a realistic question. I mean, you can't just ignore it. So until you see him on the field, until you see him doing what you think he could do, I think those questions are just going to persist. I mean, I always have questions. I understand, Bobby, you live in Florida. It's another world. But when you have an air, it wasn't an air rifle, some sort of rifle in the back seat, right? It's not illegal, but the fact that you need a rifle in the back seat, to me, is like, what do you need a rifle in the back seat for protection? What are you doing? Those things are real. I mean, that was a thing that came up in the draft.
Second Amendment right, brother.
No, my thing is,
it is. But why do you?
I know I'm giving you a hard time.
What you need it for? He needed it for protection because it was, that's I think.
Yeah, I know. I'm giving you a hard time.
My thing with Toney is, and this was the baffling thing that when it came to the spring and summer, is just finding ways to not be on the football field, and for whether it was injury, whether it was COVID during
his
camp.
Cleats didn't fit him. Have you ever heard of that in your life?
The shoe thing, he was practicing shoeless. Like it was just finding ways. Now, whether they're legit, not legit, whatever. I'm just kind of looking at it from the upstairs standpoint. Be on the field for the practices that you're especially that are mandatory, because I know the Giants are going to have more now that they have a new coaching staff. Camp is going to start earlier. Be on the field for that stuff. And if you're there during the summer, if you're there during the spring, I will take kind of a bigger, deeper breath.
Yeah, show up for the spring. That was the only thing that really bothered me about Kadarius, was like skipping OTAs, and the contract excuse was BS. That's the only concrete thing that I'm like, no, you need to show up for those.
That was sneaky, quiet, bad. He got bad advice on that, and I know that pissed off the Giants organization. They kept saying all the right things. They can't really do anything about it. But it's unheard of. Like, you ever hear of a guy holding out from OTAs? Like, that doesn't really happen for rookies. Like, you want him in there to learn the offense and do all that. And so that was weird. Here's my thing with Toney. It reminds me of the Odell situation and the fact that there's certain guys that drama seems to find them, right? But it's not really drama finding them. It's that they help cultivate it and create it as well. And so that those guys, if those guys always continuously find themselves in sort of controversial situations, they're doing something to perpetuate that. And so it's likely not going to go away. Now, is it a non-negotiable here? No, absolutely not. But you just need him. As long as you get on the field and produce, it's not a problem.
Exactly.
These have all been minor things, like everything you just named, minor things. But if you're not playing and you're bringing unnecessary attention to yourself, that's why you don't want all the drama around you. But we'll see what happens as he grows up and as he learns. I mean, even the whole media part of it, he doesn't really understand.
Are you intimidated when you go to those Kadarius Tony media sessions?
No, I'm not intimidated by him.
Come on, man. A guy laughs in your face. Like, that's a little, like, even maybe not intimidated, but it's like maybe double checking your question. Like,
do you think twice?
I don't feel like having him laugh in my face and have Bobby clipping this and
No, I don't think about that. Honestly, I think about, all right, what's the best way for me to ask this question so that he actually might answer it?
What you mean? I got a mouth. That was a good response to one. That's the one response I remember to one of your questions. My favorite was him just staring down Paul Schwartz for 10 seconds and then laughing. Tom
Yeah,
Rock.
he doesn't really
out.
understand the media concept of it, of like what it's all about and like what his role in it as the player is. And I think that's like it's not a him thing. That's like a new generation thing. Like they don't really understand the whole media concept because they see the platform that's out there for them on social media by themselves now. They think that they don't need the media, but the reality is the media is there as a purpose. It's like a marketing arm for the league and the team, but that players don't really see it that way at this point, and that he certainly does not see it that way at this point.
Well, it doesn't help that media some clowns, and he's above that.
That would be
how many times
curveball.
did you have like a bet with Bobby? How many times you could fit that into this interview?
No.
Like is the over under 3.5, and like you're at 3 right now? So if you get the 4,
I could hit if we did that, the over under would be like 10.
Well, I'm about to hit the over. I'm about to hit the over right now. How much of a curveball would it be if you were to just show up? Now, I know you wouldn't do this, but you're a professional. You also dress very well, which I compliment you every training camp that I have public access to. I'm like with the fit, with the shoes and the what do you call it?
Visor.
Thank you.
But, I get a lot of crap for the visor. It's like
one
of those. It makes me. It's like one of those things that old people wear nowadays. It's like cargo shorts.
No, it's not old people. It's you, Steve Spurrier.
Me, I wear
Kathy.
them.
It's not old people.
You just named a lot of old people.
Hey, you're for an old guy, you catch on pretty quick.
I have an old soul. It would be quite the curveball if you just show up with the shirt with his face on it, and then care to comment, and then you ask him a question. He would definitely do a double take, and I don't know how he would react to that quite strong.
We always joke like we were going to ask him like, what does Jung Joka mean?
That's something too. I have all his answers memorized. I can tell you. That's something totally different. I don't want y'all to get offended me calling y'all clowns. There's only a select group of y'all.
If I would say, what does Jung Joka mean? What would he say?
He would just laugh at you. He'd be like,
he wouldn't even understand that. I don't think
he would do that. Daryl Slater is the best one because he's just like the corn. No shot. But it's just those bring out the best Kadarius Tony moments.
Can you recite that again, Bobby?
No, I'm not doing that again. You don't ask me to recite. Next time Nick Gates wears one of our shirts, can you call him out on it in the press conference? Because he's done it like 3 or 4 times now.
What do you mean call him out? Why do I
can you ask him about that? You'd be like, "What's up?
That's a nice shirt.
Where'd you get that shirt?"
I mean, what am I working for you now?
Win a Toney Award or not? It's up to you.
If it comes down to it. And if it's like getting late in the election time, and that's what it takes, it's possible. I might do it. Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see. It might need to be like desperate times call for desperate measures. I think that's what it would take for me to be like, hey, why are you wearing a Talking Giants shirt?
He wore the Talking Giants versus the World one, the most recent, and he had a jacket on. You could just see the verses.
All you could see was.
I told him, like, dude, can you please take the jacket off next time?
I mean, I might throw in that's a sweet shirt or something. I could give you that.
Yeah, nice shirt.
No, don't promote. We're not asked for promotion, but like, hey, that's a nice shirt.
No, but I'm saying like, why you wear? Oh, what's with that shirt? Is just like that's so lame. Like to say
do that. Yes, that would be a good way to bring it up. That actually would be a good way to bring it up.
Like I'd be like, sweet shirt. Those guys are crazy losers, but whatever. And then we can have a conversation.
People would move you up. And remember, it's Talking Giants Patreon members who are the ones who vote. So it's like very specific to Talking Giants.
Okay.
I want to clean some stuff up to get back on track from the Joe Judge era.
Okay.
I want to ask about Graham. How close was Joe Judge to staying as the head coach? Because it definitely seemed like they wanted to bring him back. It really seemed like it was like I still think John Mayer believes in Joe Judge, but he realized that he had to start fresh. It was too bad. And he said those words basically.
Mm-hmm.
How close was Judge to staying? Because if before that 11-minute answer, it seemed like a foregone conclusion he was back.
He was very close to staying. I really think that in the end, the way that they wanted to keep him, obviously. Adam Schefter reported they wanted to keep him, but that was with 5 weeks left in the season.
Yeah,
and a lot happened
on your podcast.
What's that?
Then he backtracked on your podcast.
Not really. He said basically, they intended to keep him, which they did, unless they kept it open for this scenario. The thing's totally falling apart. The 11-minute ramble, and the fact that they became a public punchline. And then, even John Mara, I think, probably would have kept Joe Judge. But Steve Tisch, from what I understand, was pushing like, well, we need to make a change. Like, we have to do this. Like, this is something we have to do. Like, there's too many people unhappy. Our organization is still a mess. Like, we need to do this. We need to start over, align everyone. And then eventually, John Mara agreed with him. And that's why we're sitting here today. But yeah, no, they wanted to bring him back. Like, if that, all they had to do for Joe Judge to come back was lose quietly late in the season, not have the 11-minute answer, not have the kneeling on the, inside, just get safetied again, lose, you have no quarterback, just don't make yourself a walking punchline. That's ultimately what got him fired, is that when everyone around the country was making the Giants and Joe Judge a walking punchline, ownership then says, we can't, and this is how coaches always get fired. It reaches a point where ownership can't justify keeping him because the fan base and everyone around is so done with everybody that they just can't, for their own pocketbook, for their own, their own, their marketing team can't operate when everyone just is looking at them as a joke anymore. That's when you have to fire the coach, and that's what happened.
His buddy, shake and bake, the bake portion. Josh McDaniels hired on a Sunday. Brian Dable saying, unless he gets a head coaching gig, he's back on Monday. What changed in that time period? A lot of people have connected the Brian Flores dots, but I don't think that really, what changed from him being the head coach saying he's back unless he gets a head coaching gig to him leaving for the Raiders?
I think another opportunity arose, and he was like, hey, this might be a better opportunity than the one I'm in right now, right? Because remember, he would have come back. We know that. They all said that, right? And that's Graham interviewed with them, and he looked at everything from a big picture, and he got offered a job from someone he's worked with before, someone he trusts, someone he's friendly with. Now, he worked with Brian Dable too, don't get me wrong. But he just watched his friend, Joe Judge, what they think was getting railroaded, right? They promised Joe Judge time. How many times do you think Joe Judge had a conversation with John Mara about, this is going to take time. We're not close. And Joe Judge he said this publicly a lot about how he was intent on doing it the right way, and this was going to be a multi-step process. And he never was shy about the fact that he was basically saying publicly they weren't very good, their talent wasn't very good, and that this was going to take time. So he had these conversations with John Mara regularly, right? And all of a sudden, the rug they feel is pulled out for him. Granted, he contributed that in some ways, absolutely. But then they view it as, okay, he got the rug pulled out from underneath him. Is this really where I want to be? How do I know the same won't be done to me in a year or two?
Yeah. Next
year. So he sees an opportunity, and maybe also the talent level in Oakland, Las Vegas. They have some talented edge rushers there. So you could, it's not a terrible spot to be in. It's a guy he trusts. Maybe I'm going to go do that.
Yeah, but when Joe Judge was fired, it was like, okay, Patrick Graham's not coming back. It's like you said, for all those reasons. His best friend, who he believed in, those guys were tight knit. The shake and bake wasn't a joke. They were together.
They're very close. Yes,
very, very close.
Their wives are hanging out, and they're spending a lot of family time together. That's real.
Yeah. So it's but then McDaniels gets the head coaching gig on Sunday, so you think maybe that's a place Graham could go, but then the next day they're saying he's back unless he's a head coach. It's just such a weird way to go. But I mean, I love Pat. I'm rooting for him wherever he goes. He seems like a good. I
do think that Brian Flores situation, while not maybe the number one thing, it probably played into it. I mean, you hear these things. I mean, it sounds like at least it played a small.
Yeah, and he loved Brian
the totality of it all put together. He's sitting there saying, "You know what? Maybe this is a better spot for me."
Well, and I remember when you guys talked to him towards the end of the year. It was before the Dolphins game, is what it was, and someone asked him what happened with you. It was assume better friends with Joe. And the beat reporter, you guys left. It was a funny question. And he was just like, and he's very playful with you guys. I remember him being like, I don't find that funny at all. He's like, he went on like a 2-minute rant of like how much he loves Brian Flores. Like almost seemed like he was gonna tear up.
I don't know because it was awkward. He got offended by the question. I think Dan Duggan asked it, if I remember right. He got offended by the question, and it was supposed to be like a joke. And then sort of talked about how they were very friendly and their wives were friendly. You know, I'm talking about Flores and Graham. But there also was something there that happened along the way. And he kind of hinted about it. And I've heard some stuff about how Brian Flores, I think, essentially took over the play calling at the end.
Yeah. From
Patrick Graham. So I don't think that went over very well. That's why he kind of wanted to get out. So I don't know if I think it's just a touchy subject for Patrick Graham. And so I don't think it's that they're super, super close. I think it's that maybe they were close and they're still friendly, but there's still something there that happens, right?
And it seems like Flores kind of had that effect on a lot of people, the way he went through coaches.
Which is why he's not the Giants head coach, because that was part of the equation. I mean, that was the knock on him. And that's what they talked about. I mean, I heard that there were conversations in the organization, and when they're discussing about who they're going to pick as the head coach, like that was part of Brian Flores. Like he didn't get along with the general manager. He had, he had a lot of coordinators and coaches go in and out. Like
Tua,
that was part of the differentiation between him and Brian Daboll, from what I understand.
We found out later that Joe Judge had media chalk talk sessions with you guys. Was there anything like that we didn't know about? Maybe it's the way the offense, they were doing certain things. Like, is there anything like from those that you can give us out of those? Because it's like that fascinates me, because it's like I want to know maybe some reasoning on, maybe when Garrett was here, and I don't feel like rehashing the Garrett stuff, but why they were doing certain things.
I think that they just knew that they were so limited by the offensive line that they were just sort of protecting themselves against the offensive line the whole time. Like I'm talking about both years. Like they knew their offensive line couldn't hold up. Think about it. Every time they had to go back and pass, the quarterback was going to get hit and killed. Like, because they couldn't protect. They just knew that they couldn't protect. So I really think that they were scheming, maybe thinking too much into it, right? And going about
definitely
saying, we have to protect ourselves against this. Like, we're going to try and win the game 13-10. Like, that's how they were trying to win football games, because they knew that their offensive line was not good enough to protect, and that and that's how they had to operate. So,
Do you think that was the biggest disconnect between him and Gettleman? Because they didn't do anything for the offensive line. In fact, I mean, they made it worse going into this, from what it was in 2000. Like, at least in the end of 2020, it's like, okay, Thomas is coming along. You can see why he was drafted there. You had Zeitler. Gates was, became like a pretty good player. Lemieux was a good run blocker. And they got rid of Zeitler. Nate Solder was a downgrade from Fleming, and the coaching staff clearly never had much confidence in Matt
Parrott. The fact that you just uttered that sentence is so troubling. It's ridiculous.
I forgot which one that was.
Nate Solder is a downgrade from Cam Fleming.
And he was. He was a downgrade from Mike Remmers.
Think about that for a second, though. For God's sakes. Oh, my goodness.
He was a downgrade from Mike Remmers, and the coaching staff never had, there's no way you could tell me they ever had any confidence of Matt Parrott that they didn't let him ever start unless he was forced into that role.
Well, that's
in fact,
where
when he started, he played better than Solder,
but that's
and they still wouldn't give him the gig.
That's where you could see the real difference in opinion and the rift between the front office and the coaching staff. Obviously, two very different opinions on Matt Parrott. One is, we think Matt Parrott can be a starting tackle in the league. The other one, Matt Parrott is a backup player in this league. He can't play. The coaching staff was not high on Matt Parrott. And it did not think he could play.
Which I think that's bad on both sides, where Parrott should have never been benched, or Solder should at least quarter way through the season should have been benched for Matt Parrott, but they were just so stubborn and Matt Parrott's not the guy, that they continue to roll out a guy who wasn't ready to, he just wasn't an NFL player anymore in Nate Solder. And even when he, even in 2019, he had the worst left tackle production in the league.
I mean, we could look at it both ways. When they put Matt Parrott in there, it wasn't good either, though.
But it was no doubt, it definitely.
Now you want to see Matt Parrott only because he's younger, but
he was better than Solder.
I mean, it's debate. There's some really bad Matt.
It's close enough for
film
it
out
to
there.
have been an easy decision to play. So it's on both sides, you know. Whereas like I got a lot of heat for being like when Matt Parrott came in and didn't play well, it was like, oh, you were banging on the table for Matt Parrott. I was like, no, I was banging on the table to get Nate Solder the hell out of the lineup. Like it wasn't.
What Matt Parrott has working against him is he's now had what? He's on his fourth offensive line coach in 3 years.
He's like out of sight. And he had the injury too.
And he's been banged up, and so he's really it's like how you're supposed to develop a player like that. That's just not the way you want to go about developing a player. Every half a season, you have a different guy chirping in his ear or new techniques, and you want him to work a different way. Like he's in a spot where he's not gonna be able to succeed.
Can you ask Louis Riddick to apologize to Andrew Thomas?
Wow.
He's addressed it. I forget what he said.
I know.
He definitely addressed it.
I know.
He's definitely talked about it. You are like driving that Andrew Thomas train like no other, Bobby. Like
before he was even a Giant, I was driving.
You're in
Andrew
love.
Thomas train.
You're in love.
Oh yeah, I'm in love. I think we're trying to get him on.
Are we at a point now where it's at cruise control though? Like I don't think there's a huge need to drive it. Like,
well,
you know what I mean?
There's a difference between like I think he's a good quality tackle. Bobby thinks he's like a top 5 tackle in the league.
Top 10.
I think he's better than any of the young guys from the last 3 years.
If we're listing left and right, there's no way he's a top 10 tackle in the NFL.
Well, no, and that's the issue. That's some of the benefit that Tristan Wirfs gets. Is like, oh, Tristan Wirfs a Pro Bowl. It's like, well, yeah, because all the best tackles play left tackle. He plays.
That's not true. I mean, that's not necessarily true. I mean,
Tristan Wirfs is good, but watch Andrew Thomas.
Lane Johnson's one of the best tackles in the league. I mean, Mitch Schwartz was one of the best tackles in the league. He did this year, but I mean,
yeah.
I mean, there's some pretty good right tackles out there now, and as a matter of fact, I think it's stupid that we sit here and talk about left and right being important, but one so much more important than the other. I mean, so many of the best pass rushers rush against the right tackle these days. I think we're kind of silly to still be stuck in that left tackle being that much more important. I get the blindside part, so that does factor into it. But I mean, the better pass rushers. Go look at the pass rushers the Giants faced this year. I'd say 80% of the time, the best pass rusher lined up against the right tackle.
I understand that as talk like a one-on-one matchup, but your mistakes at right tackle get totally looked over at times because it's right in front of the QB's face. And I'm telling you, I look at it.
I mean, if you're whiffing and getting beat quickly, I mean, you're going to get your quarterback killed whether you're on the left or the right.
Yeah, but very rarely are guys totally getting dominated. Like
it might not directly correlate to as many sacks and fumbles because it's on the front side, but it's still ruining the play.
Yeah, like, but most bad tackles aren't usually as bad as Nate Solder has been the last couple of years. You know, his last 2 years as a New York Giant with their 20. So
I mean, their tackle play was at the right side was atrocious this year.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, the whole. I mean, and then they got hurt. I mean, Billy Price was their second best offensive lineman. It was brutal to watch week in, week out. So, but like if you look at any of the rookies from the last 3 years, I think Thomas is the best out of them. He's better than Becton and Wills for sure. Wirfs is debatable. Sewell, Slater, him and Slater are like really close when you watch them, and then
I don't know about that. That's I think that's silly because you're comparing Andrew Thomas in his second year when he was way better to Rashawn Slater in his first year. Like Rashawn Slater year one versus Andrew Thomas year one. Rashawn Slater's way better, Bobby.
That's fair. But I'm talking about them right now, like right now as far as players.
I mean, yes.
And Rashawn Slater just became. He was like
Rashawn Slater's progression completely stops and halts, then they're even. You know,
yeah, but Slater's not as athletic. Slater doesn't have the ceiling that Thomas has.
That's why one guy was drafted 4th overall.
And that's why
he's
Andrew
a good
Thomas.
player. I'm not like I don't want to argue about whether he's a good player. I think he's a good player. I don't know if I see him being a great player. That's where I stand on him. He's pretty. He could be really good though.
All right, so next year on this podcast, I'm gonna have to ask you to apologize to Andrew Thomas.
If Andrew Thomas
and he's played next to horrible left guard play.
If he becomes an All-Pro player, which you think he is, basically, that's our
will
review.
be.
Whether he's a good player, where I think he'll probably make a Pro Bowl, a couple Pro Bowls here or there, and you think he's basically an All-Pro player, which is we're splitting hairs. They're both pretty good.
Okay, we'll see.
See, this
I've
is what I'm
gotten a
talking
lot
about.
of heat.
This is what I was talking about, Justin. He's really riding the Andrew Thomas string to the fact that he thinks he's all pro, best tackle in the league kind of guy.
I don't think it's right now.
No.
But I think seeing what he can do, what he can be. You also got to think, he just got off season. He just got surgery on the ankle. So, this is 2 years now where he's been playing with an ankle injury. Let's get him through a year where we got no foot issues and no foot problems, and let's rock and roll in year 3 next to a capable guard and a system that is balanced.
And even as a rookie, him and Shane Lemieux would just move guys, where this year they kind of had to give Thomas just some one-on-ones, you're the only guy we could trust one-on-one blocking, where he's he's just kind of containing the edge. Do we have anything? I mean, we've been going for over an hour at this point.
Yeah, I don't even know how long we've been going because we do our Audacity, we do our audio before you hop on, Jordan. So, I appreciate you coming on.
Super
Thank
long. You. Yeah, anytime. Only for you guys. Where
can people find you? I know we're the number one Giants pod, so we like to give guys some love.
That's you're poking me here, by the way. At Jordan Raanan at Twitter. That's Raanan. Even if I spell it for people, they still put the 2 A's at the back instead of the front.
I still mess that up sometimes.
Hey, look, you're not the only one. I mean, it's hard. It's hard. Listening comprehension is difficult. I get it, Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
I could, how people call you up to can you spell your name? You're registering for something. I'm like Raanan. They'll read it back Raanan, and it's
sure.
I literally just said it. But, and also, Breaking Big Blue, the second best podcast out there, only because I'm on your turf. When you come on my turf, I'm number 1 and you're number 2. Okay.
Well, listen. I'm not saying we're the best. I'm just saying we're ranked number 1. So I gotta flex those muscles on these cats every once in a while.
Not so humble brag right there, number 2.
Oh, no.
I think the first one was before we started, but there's number 2. Number 1 was by Justin over there, who was deflated to the fact that he is super skinny.
Yeah, it was hey, you said, "Hey, Justin," and Justin's like, "Hey, I lost some weight. What do you think?"
No, I didn't say, "Hey, I lost some weight. What do you think?" I said, "Hey, Jordan, I lost 26 pounds. Can you compliment me?" That's what I said.
I mean, that's taking fishing for compliments to the next level, by the way.
Justin's no shame in Justin's game. There was one other thing I wanted to say.
You are looking good, though. I mean,
thank you.
You look natural as an umpire.
You know what's funny?
You look very natural as an umpire.
Do you know that I'm doing that currently right now?
I mean, I saw a video of you umpiring.
Okay.
Are you trying to be a professional umpire?
I don't know. Whatever opportunity knocks. When opportunity knocks at the door.
It's a great job, man. If you ever thought, if you can handle people just yelling at you all the time, they make a good living. Umpires, officials, referees in the NFL, it's good.
I'm surprised there hasn't been a ref or ump who just has punched somebody. Hasn't had that patience tested. But I will say we're the number 1 pod. You have, I think you in Giants land, you have the most followers on Twitter, so you can.
This is true.
You still have that over. I think NYG Daily might be second, so you're still in the lead there. So, all right, ESPN, Jordan Raanan, we appreciate you coming on.
Anytime, fellas.
All right, thanks to Jordan Raanan for coming on. Make sure to go tell him you enjoyed his time on the show, if you did. And honestly, I didn't get at it in the interview, but if he wants to win the Toney Award, he just needs to have us on the podcast. It's really as simple as that. It's as simple as just having us on the podcast. That's the best way, is to give us shine and give us love. So we appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Don't know exactly what we have coming Friday, but we'll have something good. Until then, let's go Big Blue.